Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking a deep breath and embarking on a really structural examination of the National Health Service in England.
Yeah.
We're going to try and move past the daily headlines, the waiting lists, the staffing shortages, because the research we've gathered points to something, well, far more fundamental.
A systemic collapse.
Exactly, an architectural collapse rooted in structural, economic, and even technological failure. Our mission today is to look beyond just, throwing more money at the problem.
Because the diagnosis is pretty clear.
It is. Incremental reform is destined to fail. So we're going to unpack this radical proposal for why the system needs an operating system level rewrite.
And why a new service, an NHS 2.0, has to be built entirely in parallel to the old one.
Before any kind of safe transition can happen.
It's really the only way to grasp the full scope of the crisis. And it all begins with a collision. You have these two powerful forces just smashing into each other.
Okay.
On one side, you have the architecture of the NHS itself. Let's call it version 1.x. It was designed almost 80 years ago.
Right.
And on the other, you have the modern citizen trying to use it, the person we're calling patient 2.0. That mismatch is the engine of the current collapse.
So patient 2.0, let's define that. This is you, right? The average citizen in 2025.
It's all of us, yeah.
You live a fully digital life. You track your parcels in real time. You manage prescriptions online. You expect services to be, available, personalized, and accessible 24/7.
That's the baseline for everything.
For everything.
And that baseline expectation is just violently opposed by the NHS 1.x architecture.
Yeah.
That system was fundamentally designed for the compliant patient of 1948.
The compliant patient.
Yeah. This was someone who accepted appointments whenever they were given, who communicated only on the system's terms. Phone calls, paper letters, face-to-face visits. They waited patiently, and they trusted, without really questioning.
Okay, let's unpack this then. What happens when you funnel a modern, digitally savvy citizen into that kind of rigid analog system?
The sources describe it so powerfully. They say patient 2.0 behaviors become functionally like DDoS attacks on the 1.x system.
A DDoS attack.
Think about it. If you, a modern user, Google your symptoms and decide you need advice now, but your GP has a 3-week wait for a routine appointment.
Yeah.
What's your rational response?
You go to A&E. You go to the emergency room.
You're forced to. You turn a non-emergency into an emergency because the routine front door is locked.
So emergency services aren't just overwhelmed by actual emergencies.
No, they're overwhelmed by demand the system itself creates. The patient isn't being demanding, they're reacting rationally to a broken, time-insensitive process.
And this must be devastatingly costly.
Oh, it's a financial catastrophe.
Right.
A visit to A&E that should have been a primary care visit, that's about a 10x cost difference right there.
Wow.
And that's before you even get to the waste from, say, duplicate tests, because information systems don't talk to each other.
Forcing patients to retell their entire medical history every single time.
Every time. It's not just annoying, it's a massive systemic financial drain.
Which brings us to the core economic flaw, which the sources describe not as just inefficiency, but as a huge incentive problem.
Yeah.
The NHS's subprime moment, that is a startling analogy, comparing a national health service to the 2008 financial crash. How do they justify that?
It all comes down to the market incentives. The uncomfortable economic truth is that the NHS operates as a supply-side market. Meaning almost every commercial entity involved, pharma companies, private contractors, big consultancies, they all have a vested interest in maintaining a population that requires treatment.
Not one that achieves prevention.
Not one that achieves prevention. More sick people equals more revenue, more activity.
So the sources literally map this out like Wall Street 2.0. They even assign the roles from the financial crisis.
They do, one-to-one. First, you have the Care Quality Commission, the CQC. They say it acts like a ratings agency, like Moody's.
Okay.
It's funded by the very entities it regulates, so it can obscure systemic risk. Then you have the big management consultancies, your McKinseys, your Deloittes.
The architect.
They're the investment banks creating the complex, toxic products. They design complexity that guarantees they'll have to be hired again to fix the mess they made. They've billed the NHS billions to repeatedly restructure a system that benefits from staying broken.
And the private contractors are packaging up the profitable bits of the NHS into contracts, extracting value, and leaving the taxpayer holding the risk.
Which creates what you mentioned earlier, the prevention paradox. It's unavoidable. Why would you focus on preventing illness when you profit from treating it for a lifetime?
And you see this in the funding.
You see it directly. The public health grant has been cut by 28% per person since 2015-16. It's now what, just 2.2% of the total NHS budget?
Which is madness when all the research shows that public health spending is 3 to 4 times more cost-effective than treatment.
It's a fiscal choice. We are choosing to treat sickness over promoting wellness.
And numbers. I mean, the finances here are genuinely shocking. The sources point to this unsellable paradox. The NHS has recorded assets of about £4.7 billion. But its total liabilities are somewhere north of 75 to 100 billion. And 60 billion pounds of that is clinical negligence provisions.
60 billion.
60 billion.
That liability is almost, what, 5 times the system's listed assets? It makes it the second largest liability on the entire government balance sheet.
Right behind nuclear decommissioning.
How is the NHS not technically insolvent?
Because it's backed by the government. But what really drives the point home is that private companies can't even make the easiest parts, like primary care for healthy people, profitable. We saw that when big U.S. firms pulled out.
So the system is just structurally toxic.
Exactly. And that brings us to the hardest part, the hardest realization from all this research.
Yeah.
Given all this structural rot, why do policymakers insist on incremental reform? And why do our sources just explicitly reject that path?
Because reform has been treated as a PR exercise. It's a way to look like you're doing something without demanding fundamental change. The system's been patched and reorganized so many times.
The patchwork problem.
Right. Every change is just another minor update. Version 1.2, 1.3, 1.3.1. We're so far past the point where tinkering will do anything.
And the system is being held together by, what's the phrase?
I love this one.
Yeah.
By duct tape and devotion. Just the sheer goodwill of its staff.
And the analogy they use for the reform attempts is, it's just perfect. It's like pilots trying to fix the engines mid-flight.
It's not bravery, it's madness. And that madness is driven by a fear of grounding the system.
But that fear serves the powerful interests who resist change.
It does. I mean, let's take Labour's planned Lexchess, the idea of moving resources towards prevention and community care. It's a noble goal.
All right.
But the sources say it's operationally doomed. Why? Because to actually do it, you have to dismantle that profitable supply-side market that enriches all the powerful stakeholders.
The pharmaceutical lobby, the private contractor.
Even the Royal Medical Colleges. They all resist simplification because it reduces their influence and their income.
So the belief that just more funding or a few digital projects will fix it it's a fantasy.
It's a false solution. You're just bolting a shiny app onto a broken analog engine. You're digitizing the dysfunction.
The diagnosis is clear. It needs an operating system level rewrite.
Absolutely. And that is where the radical necessity of NHS 2.0 comes from.
Not a gradual transition.
No, it has to be a full parallel rebuild. You cannot fix the engine while you're flying the plane with 60 million passengers on board. It's just not possible.
So detail this implementation strategy then, the parallel build model.
The sources insist the choice is binary. Build NHS 2.0 to serve patient 2.0, and we need to do it fast.
So you design the new system from the ground up for 2025 behaviors, digital first, asynchronous.
Immediate access. You build that new, robust platform in parallel to the old 1.x system. You migrate services and staff over systematically, and then only when 2.0 is fully capable, you retire 1.x.
Okay, let's talk about the blueprint itself. What are the essential design elements that make up this NHS 2.0?
First, the purpose has to shift. Fundamentally, it has to be rebuilt around the mission of keeping people healthy, not just managing sickness.
Which means deleting entire layers of bureaucracy.
Layers whose only output is administrative exhaustion, yeah. Second, the digital backbone, an NHS OS. It has to be built on a single, secure, interoperable spine.
One record for every citizen.
One record, accessible wherever they get care. It's not rocket science.
And the funding mechanism that needs a revolution, too.
It's critical. You have to move entirely from paying for activity, how many appointments, how many procedures, to paying for measurable outcomes.
Like years of healthy life delivered to the population.
Exactly. Then prevention stops being a sort of moral plea and becomes the core fiscal strategy.
And what about the hierarchy?
An inverted hierarchy. Decisions flow outward, closer to the patient. The further you get from the patient, the fewer meaningful decisions you get to make. Simple as that.
And all of this has to be wrapped in a new culture.
It does. You have to replace the ingrained culture of caution, where the safest choice is always inertia, by making courage contagious. Without that courage, all the best tech in the world is useless.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The central conflict isn't just about politics or cash. It's that the underlying architecture of the NHS is structurally failing you, the modern patient.
And it's putting the whole system at economic risk. We simply cannot force patient 2.0 back into the compliant patient 1.x box. It won't work.
It's a design flaw.
It's a design flaw, not a moral failure of the staff or the public. And the rebuild is presented as, well, as an act of love, an effort to honor the service's original values, universality, equity, but with machinery fit for this century.
And incremental change can't work because the old system is designed to resist it.
Precisely. You have to build a replacement in parallel.
So if we don't start that parallel build now?
The greatest risk facing the NHS is inertia, just doing nothing. Every year we delay this fundamental rebuilds, we lose talent, we lose public trust, we accumulate a moral debt.
Which brings us to the final thought.
The final critical question for all of us, really. For policymakers and citizens, it's this. What specific cost in terms of economic inactivity, in terms of staff burnout, or the growing debt of delayed and veiled care, what cost is acceptable while we wait for political courage to finally emerge?
To commit to building NHS 2.0.
Delay isn't a neutral position anymore. It is actively costing lives and our national productivity.